Welcome to this podcast from Rolling Roads Baptist Church of Greensboro, North Carolina. You're invited to join with us as we are growing towards Christ. The following is a message from a recent Sunday morning worship service.
Our Bible study podcast for this week is in the Bible Studies for Life personal study guide for the week of September 10th, 2023. Our session is titled Pray with Passion, and it's about how our prayers really do make a difference. That's the main point. And our example is Daniel once again in chapter 2. Before we get into that, I want to remind those of you who have the quarterly or who have gotten one online, there is a really neat article about the Babylonian and Persian kings. It's in here. It's just 4 pages of history, taken from different reference books, and it's really neat. Gives you a summary and has some pictures of the Persepolis panels that are there. But it's a good orientation if you're interested in the history and the backdrop about Judah and the Neo-Babylonian Empire, and Judah and the Persian Empire, and the fallen empires that happened after the prophecies were made. So anyway, they ask us the question, when have we ever felt clueless about fixing something? Have you ever felt clueless about fixing something? Oh, yes. I know that happens to me. Sometimes. One of my recent things was I was trying to fix the shift indicator on my truck, which had been broken just, for the last, 20 years. But anyway, I've ended up being able to fix it with some guitar string and some fishing tackle. So that was fun. But it was a poser, as Gomer Pyle would say. So anyway, sometimes we feel clueless about fixing things. We don't know what to do. And sometimes we just want to call somebody and get it fixed. But prayer is a resource that we can call upon to get things fixed, as it were, or at least to remind us how to go through the school of faith with obedience. And so I'm going to read the first section, verses 13 through 16 of Daniel chapter 2. The decree was issued that the wise men were to be executed, and they searched for Daniel and his friends to execute them. Then Daniel responded with tact and discretion to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, who had gone out to execute the wise men of Babylon. He asked Arioch, the king's officer, "Why is this decree from the king so harsh?" Then Arioch explained the situation to Daniel. So Daniel went and asked the king to give him some time so that he could give the king the interpretation. So the king had had a dream. You'll remember that Daniel and his 3 friends had knowledge and understanding in every kind of literature and wisdom, that God was at work in their life, but that Daniel had that special ability to understand visions and dreams of every kind. This was a supernatural skill that could not be taught by Nebuchadnezzar's court. Well, finally, the king had had a dream that upset him. He had called in his team to give him the interpretation, but no one was able to do it. And the magicians, mediums, sorcerers, and Chaldeans, those were the term for the Babylonian wise men. And remember, the Babylonians believed that the gods communicated to them in dreams and visions and dreams. And so the dreams were very important. Their interpretation was very important. And there's some detail in the lesson about that. Now, God had prohibited his people from consulting professional diviners or soothsayers in Deuteronomy 18:14. Of course, the Babylonians did not observe the law of God, and Nebuchadnezzar wanted these people in his court to tell him the meaning of the dream. But he refused to convey the dream's content. So see how this goes. He's had a dream, and he wants them not only to tell him the interpretation of the dream, but tell him what the dream was. Now that's pretty upsetting. This is referred to on page 31 as his unreasonable demand. But what he's trying to do is make sure that he's not going crazy, it seems like. And so the wise men spoke up and said this unfortunate sentence. Verse 10, not a good thing to say. No one on earth can make known what the king requests. Oh boy. I could go into some examples of how that translates, but telling somebody there's no way that we can do what you have said. The king was overcome with frustration and ordered his wise men to be put to death. Daniel was on the list, but Daniel said, hang on, give me a minute. I can ask God for help, is what he knows that he can do. So they asked this second question, why do we seem to wait until matters become urgent before seeking God? Do you do that? Do you wait until the water is up over your doorknob before you want to evacuate your house or get out of your car? Might be too late. Don't wait. When the Bible says that the wise person sees the evil and hides himself or acts appropriately. That's part of what wisdom is. So Daniel is trying to deal with something here on point, and we are encouraged to remember that our prayers really do make a difference. Verses 17 through 19. Then Daniel went to his house and told his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah about the matter. He comes busting back into the apartment, freaking out. But not really. Verse 18. Urging them to ask the God of the heavens for mercy concerning his mystery. What translation is this? This is the Christian Standard Bible. I just am never going to get used to this weird translation here. I think it used to be the Holman Christian Standard. Anyway, I got to get back to my verse. So verse 18, urging them to ask the God of the heavens for mercy concerning this mystery, so Daniel and his friends would not be destroyed with the rest of Babylon's wise men. So they want to preserve their lives. The mystery was then revealed to Daniel in a vision at night, and Daniel praised the God of the heavens. So, the quarterly spends, the whole 2 pages here, but you can see quickly what happened. There's a crisis. Daniel and his friends pray, and God answers their prayers. And what is the result of their answered prayer? Praise to God. They praise the Lord, and that's not really even mentioned too much here. The last clause of verse 19 is actually the main point. But they do want to teach us in the lesson about prayer. They want us to know that we should pray with our friends. We should get together with other Christians to join us in praying for a concern. Even Paul, the great missionary apostle, asked other believers to pray that he would have the boldness he needed to share the gospel. Boy, I need that prayer, and we need that prayer. Prayer for boldness that we need to share the gospel, and that the Lord would protect him from evil men. If we're out trying to witness to people or express our faith, or these days even express the fact that you're an American, man, you might get in trouble, and we need protection. We need to ask God for protection. All right, and then they want us to also learn that prayer is something that we should do for ourselves. We need to pray for ourselves and pray for our own situation. Daniel prayed for his life. He wasn't ashamed to do that. And then Daniel expected God to answer. We should expect God to answer our prayers and pray that we can see and understand God's answer to our prayers. But if we're just living, hand to mouth, day to day, panicking over whatever situation, or filling our minds and filling our hours with the wonderful news of the day, which is almost completely irrelevant, we won't be praying and expecting God to answer. We'll be living in that one-dimensional, two-dimensional life rather than on the vertical axis of relationship with God. And then they want us to remember that Daniel praised God for answered prayer. That's what I was talking about earlier. And that this is, to me, is very important. The engine of worship is the faithfulness of God in our prayers. So our prayers really do make a difference. And then they challenge us with the question, when has God answered your prayer in a meaningful way? When has he done it? Do you know of a time when God has answered your prayers? And it's not just when good things happen. Sometimes challenges or change happens and God is answering our prayers. Or sometimes things happen with other people and in their lives and God is answering prayer. So don't just ask. Look for the answer. All right, in our final passage, verse 20, and declared, may the name of God be praised forever and ever, for wisdom and power belong to him. So this is their praise, obviously. Continuing on, so it's kind of a weird the way this is. I really should have read this out of my Bible, but anyway. So they've seen God, they're praising God and declaring, may the name of God be praised forever and ever, for wisdom and power belong to him. He changes the times and seasons. He removes kings and establishes kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals the deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. I offer thanks and praise to you, God of my ancestors, because you have given me wisdom and power, and now you have let me know what we asked of you, for you have let us know the king's mystery. So down in verse 27, you know the result. Daniel answered the king, no wise man, medium, magician, or diviner is able to make known to the king the mystery he asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has let the king Nebuchadnezzar know what will happen in the last days. Wow. So, a very dramatic story. There's quite a few verses left out here, which I don't particularly enjoy. But we need to understand that we can honor God when he answers our prayers. And Daniel praises God for his being the creator of the universe and the earth, that nothing is beyond his reach, that God's hand is on his side, just like he has been with other prophets. And we should realize today what Matthew tells us. He is Emmanuel, God with us. He is with us always, even to the end of the age. Nothing can separate us from God's presence. So that's what should help support our prayer life, knowing that God is near to us when we call upon him. If we draw near to him, he will draw near to us. And then Daniel's prayer underlines God's omnipotence. He's very happy of God's power over kings like Nebuchadnezzar, even though Daniel's just a little crumb in the court there, that Daniel praises God for his power over powers. Sometimes we feel powerless, don't we? In our society today, especially if we're news junkies and we're all worried about how the government is doing horrible things to citizens for no good reason, and they seem to be trying to destroy everything that we need, we can get worried. We can feel powerless when we know we have power, not just as American citizens, of course, But we have power as Christians because God is with us. We draw upon His power. We understand that we're aligned with God if we are following through with the life of faith and the school of faith. And we know that we are near to God and that His power is working good for those who work for Him and to do His pleasure and to please Him in life. All right. So God has lots of power, lots of knowledge, all of it, in fact. And God knows exactly what the future holds. So anyway, our main point again is our prayers really do make a difference, but that's not just because of our prayers, it's because of God, who God is and to whom we are praying is the important thing. So anyway, I hope this is encouraging to you. Just like Daniel prayed, we need to pray too and understand that we can be praying way before a crisis situation hits. We can be praying with passion every single day so that when challenges come, we know that we have a right relationship with God. Well, I hope this podcast has been a blessing to you, and Lord willing, I'll see you real soon at church at the Rolling Roads Baptist Church near Four Seasons Town Center across from Smith High School on Van Story Street. God bless.
Thank you for listening. Rolling Roads Baptist Church is located at 2800 Van Story Street in Greensboro, North Carolina, near Four Seasons Town Center and Smith High School. You're invited to join with us this Sunday morning at 11 a.m. as we are growing towards Christ. Find us on Facebook and at rollingroads.org.